All right, we're back on MorningLine talking presidential politics, more or less, with Professor Thomas Schwartz from over at Vanderbilt. And, yeah, just a lot to discuss, Professor. We've got some folks on the line. Let's go to Joe. Joe, good morning.
Good morning, Nick.
Hi, Joe.
Professor. First of all, let me make it clear I'm an independent. I'm not Republican or Democrat, really. To kind of go with the person. But, you know, this guy... I'm wondering where we're headed down the road to when you can't believe anything that this guy says. I mean, you know, he says one thing one day, another thing the next day, then he finally admits, well, you know, maybe I did pay this person off, but, you know, I paid with my own money. And, I mean, I don't know, I'm confused that... Where is America headed when you got a guy that's a leader of the country, supposedly, but you can't believe nothing he says? I mean, the guy, he's a master at misdirection. Whenever they get on him about one thing, he will switch right in the middle of the stream and start something else to make you forget what the original problem was to begin with. Nick alluded to it a little bit a while ago about North Korea. That wasn't nothing but that's just a farce. Mm-hmm. Those people are not doing anything. They're over there chuckling right now, probably. Well, you know, we sent him back, and he's telling everybody what all we're going to do. So we're not going to do none of that.
And yet Kim Jong-un got the status of getting to sit down with the leader of the free world. So if you wonder who got what out of the North Korea meeting, I think Kim Jong-un came out on top. Because, I mean, the president didn't gain anything from sitting down with him unless he was going to get an agreement on nukes. And now we know that didn't happen. So, you know, it's unfortunate. It gave some credibility to that North Korean leader, who's an awful, awful despot.
I agree with you 100%. And these tariffs, I agree with Trump on this. We've been going a long time letting these countries send stuff over here and flood the market with their products and charging us the arm and the leg to send anything back over there. But it's going to, a little bit further down the road, the farmers and some of the other industry is going to get hit.
Yeah, the president likes to say, though, that it's a short-term thing. And you know, this is President Trump as the businessman speaking, who I think for years saw how China and maybe some other countries really had some unfair balance. And I'll tell you, he's going to stick to his guns on this. Overnight, more tariffs went into effect, and China's firing back, and the diplomats are meeting, but it's not working out. What do you think of that?
Well, I think the thing is, most economists, of course, argue against tariffs and believe in free trade and the rest. But free trade does have has had hard impacts, and the suspicion about, particularly about China's role, is certainly there. I think the one thing Trump has going for him here is the strength of the U.S. economy allows him to pressure China right now, and it will be interesting. I mean, this is a bargaining mode, and you're right, it's interesting that you feel like he'll stick to his guns here, whereas in fact Joe was saying you can't believe what he's going to say, but he does project on this tariff issue a certain sense of I'm going to do this and we're going to force these issues.
I almost get the sense watching him like this, thinking that there was a time in the president's prior life before becoming president as a businessman where he felt some aspect of his business was being treated unfairly by China's tariffs. And it got to him, and he saw this, and he said, as a business person, hey, I'm in favor of free trade, but they're not playing that game, and this is making me mad. Yeah. We want to nail them back. It almost makes me think that some experience he had in the past really upset him.
Well, he has been saying essentially this, although back in the 1980s he was focused on Japan, not China. But he's been saying this type of thing for almost 40 years.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, we'll see how that plays out. Let's go to Brian. Hi, Brian.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, you remember a couple years ago, it was in the summertime, and I said Trump will be elected president, but he'll be our last president. And you're like, oh, no.
But he'll be our last president, did you say? Or, I'm sorry?
Yeah, you remember I said in July of 2016, I said Trump will be elected president, but he'll be our last president.
Oh, okay. Well, I do remember you making that first prediction. You did.
All right, and then I predicted that he'd be president. Now, the thing is, Now, and then the other guy at nighttime, I think the doc was on with him, and then he mistook what I said to say he did that would be the last election. There'll be another election. He'll be reelected, or if he decides not to run, Pence will be elected. But I think we're looking at a breakup of the country. I mean, I don't know if it'd be such a bad thing. We're just so polarized that I don't know. It's happened all over the country. The only one that's left together is China, and it's communist. So, and talking about free trade, it's not free trade. You've got to have fair trade. And we've never had fair trade with these guys. The economy's doing great. I disagree with you on the Korea thing. I do think that the Kim Jong-un just came out and said something about the American media. He said Kim Jong-un made a radical statement that's never come out of free reports. That I'm with Trump. And I think that his detractors and his people that are giving him a hard time are causing him problems. And I was shocked when Kim Jong-un said that. And I have some Korean friends, and they think that what he should do is Kim Jong-un should go to Singapore and they should reunite the country because he can't stay there. And I do believe within 5 years it'll be reunited. That's another one of my great predictions. Another great prediction of Brian is, remember when I said that he was going to buck the trend and that the House of Representatives would stay in Republican control, or it'd be static. They'd lose a few seats, but maybe keep the majority by one or two.
Yeah.
Now I'm a little concerned about that. So I think we'll keep the Senate, but shoot, maybe we might only keep the House by maybe 1 seat. So I think we're going to gain 4 seats in the Senate. I think we're going to lose 9 in the House.
Okay, hang tight on that. Lots of predictions from him. Yeah, but that does lead us to the question I was going to ask you about maybe the midterms and some of this turmoil in D.C. around the president. And could that trickle down? And do you think he's right? I mean, could the Republicans really lose the House?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I think they could lose the House. I think that's, again, it gets to this issue of turnout, districts, vulnerable districts, and the degree to which the Democratic base is more energized than the Republicans, and the degree to which that has an impact across the board. Here in Tennessee, I mean, the key thing might be the Senate race, the Bredesen Blackburn Senate race, because that would be more of an indicator, because our House seats are pretty secure.
Yeah, I think so.
But that race should be interesting to see whether Phil Bredesen, running a sort of moderate campaign, can defeat a Trump supporter like Marsha Blackburn. But I do think he's probably right that the Republicans will hold the Senate. I don't know that they'll gain much, but the House is certainly up in the air.
All right, let's go to Cindy. Hi, Cindy.
Good morning, Dick.
Good morning, Cindy.
Okay, here we go. Okay, I don't care about anything that could have possibly happened in the past. What I care about Donald Trump is if he done it, but he didn't do it. And another thing, the only thing I focus on is my big old paycheck now, and I also focus on that my property taxes and stuff. Even though they got a little higher this year, but, you know, that's what I'm focused on. Money, money, money.
You know what? And she's a core, strong supporter of Donald Trump. And I put her in the category, really, of, you know, I think it would be have to be something pretty dang awful for her not to support him anymore. She's the core group. But she's right. Isn't it true? And it's historically true. No matter what else is going on, and there could be all kinds of crazy stuff going on, Americans tend to, in general, vote their pocketbook.
Yes, I think that's the economic conditions do have an underlying effect. Now, you get at the margins here, though, because we are at the margins in some of these districts and that, and so other issues can have an impact. But you know, this is, of course, one of the differences between, say, Trump and Nixon.
Okay.
Nixon's situation, the Republicans were punished badly for Nixon in the 1974 midterms. They lost badly in that. But the economy was tanking at that time. You were getting into a sort of huge recession. So it wasn't just Nixon and Watergate, it was also the economy was mixed in. And I think Trump, what's interesting about this is that Trump even though personally still below 50% on popularity, and the rest is still held on to his strong core supporters. And it just will be, the question will be, can that be enough to keep the House, which is still, I think, so closely.
Yeah, and so the president, I think, is going to try to tout, what he views as being some positive economic indicators. And there are some. Now, whether his policies exclusively had something to do with it, I think it's fair to say after 2 years, some of what he has done does. And you could also make the argument that the economy is still hanging in there pretty tough, despite the fact that these tariffs could have a negative impact, and the president's going ahead with those anyway. So that's something to be said there.
I think the interesting thing will be that I think that he still will stir up a lot of Democrats who are upset about the sorts of things he's done in other areas, particularly on race relations, on the NFL, these sorts of things where there's anger about the way he's governed and the divisive way he's governed. So I do think it'll be kind of interesting. It's just that House districts are drawn in such a way as to make it hard really to have that sort of transformative effect.
Let's go to Reverend Fuzz. Hi, Reverend.
Hey, Nick, here's another prediction for you. We're going to stay with it, okay?
Okay.
The president will not make it the rest of the year. He will be out of office. I know that sounds far-fetched, but he will be out of office before the year is over. On the economy, I want to ask you this. People keep saying the economy is booming. It's not booming for 60% of people in America. It's booming for Wall Street and for rich people. And you can reply to that. People don't have housing. The unemployment rate that the president touts for African Americans being the lowest in history, you're making half the money that you made, or the same amount of money that you made in 1980. So it's not the lowest ever. You're paying people half the money, so you're putting double the people to work. Those are my comments. End of the year, he's out.
All right. Wow. Wow. That's a bold prediction,
it's
which would be stunning to me along those lines. I mean, a circumstance for that would have to be that some other, based on what we know now, that's not happening. But what we don't know that could come, be it more from Cohen or more from some of the investigation, it would have to be pretty devastating, I would think.
I think it would have to be something along the lines of a type of proof of collusion that would break the Republican support for the president. Yeah, and that's I would have thought it would have come out by now if they had sort of smoking gun type thing.
Do you? And by the way, if you would, as we go to the break, just remind folks what it takes to impeach a president.
What it takes is, of course, a majority vote in the House, which is probably likely that they could get that after the midterms, but you need 2/3 of the Senate. The trial, the impeachment is simply indictment. The trial goes on in the Senate, and you need 2/3 of the Senate, so 67 senators.
Difficult thing to do. Listen, we'll take a break when we come back. Lines open, 737-7587. Some great comments, some good observations making me think. If you have a thought on what's happening right now at this large political spectrum, give us a call. If you're on hold, we'll get to you right after this.